Everyone, welcome back to Theosophy. This is the last of the meditation series, as well as um, easily the most macabre, and I think that's very fitting. This is the death meditation episode, so what better way to end the meditation series than with death? So, a lot of people say that meditation, in and of itself, as a practice, is preparation for death, and I think that's a pretty I think it's a very accurate statement, but I also think that it doesn't really quite cover the whole gist of the point of meditating. I don't think that it's an expressly death focused activity at all, but I also do think that it helps tremendously with both awareness of death, awareness of mortality, as well as fortitude, mental fortitude in the face of the actual process and practice of dying. Because dying is 100% a part of being alive, and it is something that everyone is going to ultimately experience. So there's different aspects of death meditation, and it is an expressly Buddhist concept when people generally talk about death meditation. Now, mystics all over the world have meditated on their own mortality. The Stoics did, the Christians did, a lot of people have, the Hindus, a lot of people have meditated and thought about their own mortality. In the West, in particular, it's called memento mori, and you see it in a lot of places. Unfortunately, it's sort of been perverted and distorted by the whole Kali Yuga mindset that we see everywhere. Instead of seeing it as a live virtuously so that you will remember properly perspective, which is what memento mori is supposed to be, instead it's turned into YOLO. It's sort of like, do the most degenerate, horrible stuff because you have a finite amount of time. Complete opposite. Same thing with carpe diem too, by the way. Yeah, not supposed to be banging hookers who are HIV positive because carpe diem. That's not what that means. Well, similarly, death meditation is often misinterpreted by the West in the Buddhist model, and that's the most common model, and that is Sati, which just means death awareness or death mindfulness. So initially, the primary stages of death mindfulness is just almost identical to memento mori. It is just consistently being aware whenever the opportunity arises to be aware that you are mortal. Try and carry it with you everywhere, every day, that you have a limited time. I've seen a lot of it's very interesting. I've seen a lot of people who practice journaling put actually the number of days that they approximately have left in their life, and that's under ideal circumstances. It's not like they know for sure, but based on the average lifespan, and that motivates them to do what needs to be done because they're aware of just how finite their time to make an impression on the world is. Well, similarly, Sati at its most base form is just that. It's an awareness that your days are numbered, and that if you want to escape from suffering in the Buddhist model, you're going to have to put forth an effort in order to actively escape suffering. That's sort of the crux of Sati. Now, it takes on a very different format. I was trying to think of a good word for this. It takes on a very different format once it's fully fleshed out and evolved. And fleshed out's kind of an appropriate term because the most in-depth form of death meditation is actively contemplating, visualizing, I would say is probably the better word, your own decomposition, because it really makes you more aware, not just how finite you are, but of what is inevitable. I mean, we often have this vanity, and that's another thing that ties in with memento mori. You usually have these beautiful physical images corresponding with images of decay, and it's part of that is to combat the vanity that people inherently have. Well, what happens when you die? Your all the beautiful color from your complexion will drain, blood will pool on your back or face depending on how you're lying. Your limbs will swell up, your abdomen will swell with gases, phorid flies will lay eggs on you, you'll begin to turn purplish, then the skin will start to recede and dry and wrinkle, and those fly eggs will hatch and those larvae will begin to consume. Just think of the things that you admire about yourself. I like the color of my eyes. Eventually, they will be milky white, and then they'll be eaten, and they'll be gone, completely gone. They'll be dust. They will be maggot shit. They will. It's inevitable. That's going to happen. That will happen. Visualize that happening. It's hard to be vain and self-centered when you visualize that happening. And it's also hard to fully equate yourself, capital S, with your corporeal body when you visualize that happening. It's kind of like what I mentioned before about how the mind can't contemplate itself. It can only think of a model within a model of itself. Well, similarly, when you really contemplate your body, when you really push your awareness on your body, and then you take that awareness and you apply it to the decomposing of your body, it really makes you aware that you're not really your body. And I don't mean that in a sense that you are a soul. I simply mean that the consciousness that you're experiencing, while it has a direct interplay with having a physical body, with having a brain, mind and body are not directly equated with one another. What you're experiencing when you contemplate your decay, what part of you are you experiencing it with? With your brain? Well, yeah, there are neurons firing, absolutely, but what you're experiencing is a more abstract thing. You are contemplating something that will happen but has not yet happened, and you're contemplating the destruction of your body with part of you that's not your body. And it really puts a lot of things in perspective when you do this. And I realize this is by the way, this is the least promoted for me form of meditation, because you do have to have a psychological preparedness for this particular kind of meditation, or you will end up with a real hang up and a fixation with your mortality, and you'll end up with something akin to a nervous breakdown / midlife crisis, because coping with the temporariness of yourself, or more accurately, your physical self, it's not easy. It's not easy, and it's not necessarily fun. So I do recommend that if you do attempt this, I do think it's extremely good for anyone to eventually attempt this. But if you are not ready for it, then maybe hold off, because it is a very intense practice, and it's one that, if not done correctly, or if not done in the right mindset, more accurately, could definitely lead to more harm than good. But I also do see the merits of it, tremendous merits, in fact, because we live in a society that utterly denies death. We pretend that it doesn't happen. We ignore the idea of it happening. When we reach a certain threshold in our age, we begin to dye our hair and buy sports cars and pretend that we're still 20. And ultimately, when people do die, we make them up like they're sleeping, and we make a big show of how it's not really the end for them. And it's an extremely unhealthy practice. And it's one that started really in the 19th century. It's not a very modern, it's not a very long-lasting process. It's a very unhealthy one that I think death meditation can really help circumvent the consequences of. So, yeah, that's about it. Next week will be another primer. So, like, share, subscribe, keep asking questions. Bye.